One evening, as Ibukun sat on the porch of her grandmother's house, a strange feeling washed over her. The air was still, almost too quiet, and the night seemed darker than usual. Her instinct told her that something was amiss. The spirit husband had been quiet since the encounter with Prophet Elijah, but tonight she could feel his presence more strongly than ever before. Suddenly, a chill ran down her spine, and she heard a whisper in her ear. It was the spirit husband, his voice low and urgent. Ibukun, be vigilant. There are forces at play that seek to harm you. You must be prepared. Ibukun's heart skipped a bit. She had grown accustomed to the spirit husband's presence, but this warning felt different, more ominous. What do you mean? She whispered, glancing around as if expecting to see something in the shadows. There are those who have heard of the fate of the four pastors, the spirit husband replied. They are not deterred by the warnings. In fact, they are drawn to your power, seeking to control it for their own gain. You must be careful, Ibukun. The battle is not yet over. Before Ibukun could respond, the spirit husband's presence faded, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She felt a mix of fear and determination. Who were these new forces? What did they want from her? And how could she protect herself from those who sought to exploit her yet again? The next day, as Ibukun went about her routine, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The villagers, who had once looked at her with admiration, now seemed distant, almost weary. Whispers followed her whenever she went, and she could sense the tension in the air. Later that afternoon, a group of strangers arrived in the village. They were dressed in fine clothes and carried an air of authority. The leader, a tall man with piercing eyes and a commanding presence, introduced himself as Apostle Michael. He claimed to have heard of the miraculous events in the village and had come to offer his help. The villagers, still shaken by the downfall of Prophet Elijah, were hesitant to trust another outsider, but Apostle Michael was different. He spoke with confidence and charisma, quickly winning over the trust of many. He told them that he had been sent by God to cleanse the village of any lingering darkness and to bring true deliverance to those in need. Ibukun, however, remained skeptical. She had seen too many men like Apostle Michael, and she was weary of his tensions. Despite his smooth words, she could sense something off about him. But the villagers, desperate for reassurance, began to flock to him, seeking his blessing and guidance. A few days after his arrival, Apostle Michael requested a meeting with Ibukun. He came to her grandmother's home, where he was warmly welcomed. Her grandmother, who had grown concerned about the recent changes in the village, urged Ibukun to speak with him. Perhaps he truly is different, she suggested gently. Maybe he can help you find the peace you seek. Reluctantly, Ibukun agreed to meet with him. They sat in the living room where Apostle Michael began to speak in a calm, soothing voice. Ibukun, he said, I have asked much about you and the trial you have faced. I know that you have been through a lot, and I want to help you find the freedom you deserve. Ibukun listened quietly, her eyes fixed on his. Despite his reassuring tone, she could feel the spirit husband's presence growing stronger, as if warning her of something unseen. Apostle Michael continued, the spirit that followed you is powerful, but it is not beyond control. With my guidance, we can bind it and set you free. The mention of binding the spirit husband sent a shiver down Ibukun's spine. She knew that the spirit husband had protected her, howbeit in ways she didn't fully understand. The idea of binding him felt strong, as if she were betraying a part of herself. You think you can control him? Ibukun asked, her voice tingled with suspicion. Apostle Michael smiled, but there was a glint in his eyes that made her uneasy. I have dealt with spirits far more powerful than this one, he said confidently. With the right rituals, we can sever his hold on you and free you from his curse once and for all. Ibukun remained silent, her mind racing. The spirit husband word from the previous night echoed in her ear, be vigilant. You must be prepared. She knew she couldn't trust Apostle Michael's, no matter how convincing he seemed. That night, as Ibukun lay in bed, she felt the spirit husband's presence again. This time it was different, more intense, more urgent. He spoke to her in a voice filled with anger and determination. This man is dangerous, Ibukun. He seeks to bind me, to take away your strength. You must not let him. Ibukun's heart pounded in her chest. She had always knew that the spirit husband was a powerful force, but now she could feel the full extent of his fury. What shall I do? She whispered, her voice trembling. You must resist him, the spirit husband replied. Do not allow him to perform his rituals. He will only bring harm to you and those you love. Trust in yourself, and I will protect you. The next day, Apostle Michael announced that he will be performing a special ceremony in the village square to cleanse Ibukun of the spirits of influence. The villagers, eager to see another miracle, gathered in anticipation, but Ibukun knew she couldn't allow it to happen. As the ceremony began, Ibukun felt the spirit husband's presence, enveloping her like a protective shield. Apostle Michael started chanting in language she didn't understand, calling upon powers that felt dark and malevolent. The air grew thick with tension, and the villagers watched with bated breath. But before Apostle Michael could complete the ritual, a powerful gush of wind swept through the square, knocking him off his feet. The villagers gasped in shock as the sky darkened and thunder rumbled in the distance. Ibukun stood tall, her heart filled with resolve. The spirit husband's voice echoed in her mind, urging her to act. Do not let him bind me, he commanded. With a surge of strength, Ibukun stepped forward, her voice ringing out across the square. Stop this, she shouted. You are not welcome here, Apostle Michael. Leave this village and never return. Apostle Michael, shaken by the sudden turn of events, scrambled to his feet. He looked at Ibukun with a mix of fear and anger. Realizing that his plan had failed, the villagers, once in awe of him, now began to question his intentions. As the wind died down and the sky cleared, Apostle Michael knew he had lost. Without another word, he gathered his things and left the village, his once commanding presence reduced to that of a defeated man. Ibukun watched him go, her heart pounding with a mix of relief and fear. She had stood up to him, but she knew that this was only the beginning. The forces that sought to control her were growing stronger, and she would need all the strength she could muster to face them. As the villagers dispersed, Ibukun returned to her grandmother's home, where she sat quietly, reflecting on what had happened. The spirit husband present was still with her, but it felt different, more connected, as if they were now truly working together as one. Ibukun knew that her journey was far from over. There were still challenges ahead, forces that sought to exploit her powers for their own gain. But with the spirit husband by her side and her newfound inner strength, she was ready to face whatever came next. The village had experienced many strange and terrifying events since the arrival of the first prophets. Ibukun had become a figure of mystery, a story whispered in hushed tones by the villagers. They had witnessed the downfall of several so-called men of God, and many had begun to lose hope that Ibukun would ever be free from the spirit husband's grasp. One day, however, a new figure arrived in the village. Unlike the others, he came quietly, without fanfare or grand promises. His name was Prophet Joshua, a humble man who radiated a calm and peaceful energy. He wore simple clothes and carried only a small Bible. From the moment he entered the village, it was clear that he was different from the others who had come before him. Prophet Joshua did not immediately seek out Ibukun or make bold declarations. Instead, he spent time getting to know the villagers, listening to their stories, and offering words of comfort and wisdom. He spoke of God's love and the power of faith, but he did not boast of his own ability. The villagers, weary from their past experiences, were drawn to his humility and sincerity. One evening, after he had been in the village for several days, Prophet Joshua requested a meeting with Ibukun. By this time, Ibukun had grown weary of anyone claiming to be a man of God, but something about Prophet Joshua's demeanor put her at ease. When they met, he greeted her with a warm smile and spoke to her gently. Ibukun, he began, I've heard of the struggles you have faced, and I want you to know that God has not forgotten you. The spirit that has been tormenting you is strong, but God is stronger. You do not need to fear, for He is with you. Ibukun listened, her heart aching with a mixture of hope and doubt. She had heard similar words before, but this time they felt different. Prophet Joshua did not speak with the arrogance or bravado of the others. Instead, his words were filled with compassion and genuine concern. I do not seek to bind the spirit's husband or fight him with my own strength, Prophet Joshua continued. For it is not by my might or power, but by the Spirit of the Lord that you will be set free. He then invited Ibukun to join him in prayer, not in the village square, with all the villagers watching, but in the quiet of her grandmother's home. They knelt together, and Prophet Joshua prayed with a sincerity that touched Ibukun's heart. He did not shout or demand. Instead, he simply asked God to intervene, to bring peace and deliverance to Ibukun. As they prayed, Ibukun felt a warmth spread through her body, a comforting presence that seemed to wrap around her like a protective cloak. For the first time in years, she felt truly at peace. The spirit husband presence, which had always been so overpowering, began to fade. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Prophet Joshua continued to pray, his word filled with love and faith. He quoted the scriptures, reminding Ibukun of God's promises. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23 verse 1. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and future. Jeremiah 29:11. Finally, Prophet Joshua said, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command the spirit to leave Ibukun and never return. She is a child of God, and no weapon formed against her shall prosper. At that moment, Ibukun felt the powerful release, as if the chains that had bound her for so long were broken. The spirit husband was gone. His hold on her life finally sapped. Tears streamed down her face as she realized that she was free. Prophet Joshua helped her to her feet and smiled gently. You are free, my daughter. You are free, Ibukun. Walk in the light of God's love and do not let fear or doubt hold you back. Your life is in His hand now. Words quickly spread through the village that Ibukun had been set free. The villagers, who had been skeptical at first, were now filled with awe and gratitude. They gathered to celebrate, praising God for His mercy and for sending Prophet Joshua to them. Ibukun's life changed dramatically after that day. The fear and anxiety that had plagued her for so long were replaced with a deep sense of peace and purpose. She became more involved in the life of the village, helping others who were struggling and sharing her testimony of God's deliverance. Prophet Joshua remained in the village for a time, continuing to minister to the people and helping them to grow in their faith. But eventually, he felt called to move to another village, trusting that God will continue to work in Ibukun's life and in the lives of the villagers. As he prepared to leave, Prophet Joshua gathered the villagers together one last time. He reminded them of the importance of true faith and humility. Remember, he said, it is not by your own strength that we overcome, but by the power of God. Do not be deceived by those who seek to exploit you for your gain. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and He will guide you. The story of Ibukun teaches us that true deliverance and freedom come not from the strength or charisma of individuals, but from the power of God. It is God who breaks the chains that bind us and set us free. Prophet Joshua's humility and sincerity were crucial in helping Ibukun find peace. This reminds us of the biblical lessons that God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. James chapter 4 verse 6. We should approach God with humility, trusting in His wisdom and power. The story warns us to be cautious of those who claim to be prophets but seek to exploit others for their gains. Jesus warned in Matthew chapter 7 verse 15 to beware of false prophets who come in sheep's clothing but are inwardly ravenous wolves. Ibukun's journey teaches us to trust in God's plan for our lives. Even when faced with challenges and uncertainty, we can have confidence that God is with us, guiding us and working for our good. Romans chapter 8, verse 28. With these lessons, the story of Ibukun comes to a close, leaving the villagers with a deep understanding of faith, humility, and the power of God's love.